Hi guys, it's JT here and I've got another fantastic video for you. So communication is one of the most important and if not the most effective leadership principle that you can apply to your life and also your leadership journey to make a huge difference. And in today's video, that's exactly what I'm going to be going through. So this video series is about effective leadership principles, not only for the younger generation, but for the older generation too. So I've been both. As I record this now, I'm 28 years old, so you can consider me a millennial. I've come up through that part where I've grown up as a younger person, and I've been trying to learn my way and learn my leadership style. So that's what I want to just share with you in today's video is what are some of the key things to take away regarding communication as a leadership principle, but also as an older generation, as now someone a bit older who's leading other people and leading teams, bigger teams, leading larger projects, is what are some of the principles from communication that you could also take away to realize how you can better lead the younger generation. I know there's so much, sometimes there's like comments and statements being made about how the younger generations of millennials are not worth it, or they're just hard work, or they're not willing to work, but that is completely wrong, right? There's so much to understand, and communication is one of the first principles on how to be an effective leader. Right, so who am I? What exactly am I doing? If you've never watched any of my videos, then essentially my mission is to bring leadership to your life. Bring leadership principles and bring them to your life so that they can have a positive impact. That's essentially what I'm doing in these videos. Right, so I've written a book about this. These principles are coming from my book, Managers Are Not Leaders. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going through exactly what's in the book. I'm just going to share with you how the principles can apply. Right, so let's go into the first bit. The first bit is about the younger generation. So I know for fact, when I was a bit younger, I was at that point where I was like, you know what? I want to be part of it, this big mission. I want more. I want to be involved, but I didn't really know how to get that across. So I was, as normally, if you're a younger person, you start on your career or your business, you're learning the ropes, and you generally won't have the biggest tasks in the world. You won't be leading the biggest teams or running your own projects. No, you've got to learn the ropes. You've got to take step by step and grow yourself. Right, so one of the key elements that I didn't really understand at the beginning was communication. I thought that I was always right. I knew what to do because that was my one mindset, is just get it done, do it. Yeah, my way's the right way. When actually that was completely wrong. I found that behaving that way, essentially communicating in that fashion, wasn't getting me anywhere. People weren't listening to me. Some people may have respected that, but a lot of people may not have, especially the older generation. When I'm a young person, so I started out in a career in my leadership journey when I was 18 years old, right? So starting out from 18 and you're trying to lead essentially or manage a lot of older people in the industry, people are probably looking at you thinking, who the hell is this guy telling me what to do? So I had to learn how to change my communication style so that I can become a better leader. And that's what I did. As I went through my journey, is that again, year on year, learning and growing, I developed my own communication style. And by doing that, it allowed me to better connect with people, be myself, so be more authentic as a leader, and communicate better with people to get the results that I needed. And that's the most important thing here, is communication allows you to influence people to get the results that you need. Most importantly though, influencing for a positive impact. Remember, we're leaders, and yes, you have good and bad leaders, and that's up to you how you want to do that. But my advice is to communicate, to influence, to have a positive impact and positive result, and that is to give a positive result not only for yourself but for that person too. So what is this style of communication? So for me, it was shifting out of this mode of, well, everything's done direct and via e-communication. So far too often in today's world, we are too heavily reliant on emails and messaging to communicate our message across, and it's really struggling to have an impact, especially when you're a leader, you're trying to influence somebody. So I found that actually the best way to do this was to start the communication by being clear, concise, but most importantly face to face. Right, so that's something I actually discussed in the book, is when you're face to face with somebody, you can understand them. Do they understand what you're talking about? You can get a feel from them. There's so many more ways to communicate than just verbal. Most studies show that 70% of our communication is through our body language. If you're communicating with somebody, you can actually see from their facial expressions or their body language, are they interested in what you're saying? Are they switching off? Are they slightly confused? Like, sometimes you can look at someone's eyebrows and they're looking at you and they're like, or they're looking up and you're like, okay, maybe they're confused. Maybe I need to slow this back down. So that's the great thing about a face-to-face communication. Now, this isn't always easy. Sometimes you're in situations where you cannot communicate. So whether you're working remotely, whether you are in a different country, you can't do it face-to-face. So I advise video calls or with video chat so that you can actually, people can see you. Now, if it's one-on-one, I suggest maybe do a video call for both of you. If it's to a larger group, then maybe you don't want to see the video for everybody. Connection issues, there's all kinds of things like that, right? But I really suggest a face-to-face, at least if they can see you or you can see them. Now, the model I talk about in the book is a face-to-face model. So if you're trying to communicate anything, and it's really important here to be clear and concise when you're communicating. So for the younger generation, this is definitely something that you want to learn. If you are on that leadership journey, then this is definitely something that you want to learn. Implement this from an early age or an early point in your leadership journey, and you will see exponential growth, but you'll also see better connections and better results. Right, so this model it's a face-to-face model. It's how I call it in the book. It's not complicated. It's essentially a cycle where you start with a face-to-face communication. The next step is engagement. So this is where you communicate with the person. You ask them questions. Do they understand what you're talking about? The next step after that is confirmation. So we live in a world of confirmation, right? People don't really want to act unless there's an email, a memo, or something to tell them exactly what to do. So what I generally do is have that face-to-face conversation, get the engagement, make sure they know what you're talking about, you understand, they understand. Most importantly, it's clear and concise, and then confirm it. This could be with an email, just say, hey, as discussed, happy with you to proceed on what you're doing. This is the results. Remember, clear and concise. It doesn't need to be 6 paragraphs long. It just needs to be a few bullet points. Bang, bang, bang. Clear and concise. And then the last stage. So when we had face-to-face, we had engagement, we had checking in. Sorry, we had a confirmation. And then the last stage is checking in. This is literally just catching up with the person again. If you've given them a task or they're working on something for you, and it's going to take them a few days, right? You always have a timeline. If it's going to take them a few days, then check back in with them after 2 days or 1 day and just say, hey, just having a look, see how you're getting on. Is there any other questions? They might come back to you and say, actually, yeah, I have a question about this. So this is actually quite important, because when you are the younger generation, understand this early. When you communicate something to someone, you have in your mind an image of what that looks like. So this could be, say for example, you want someone to build you a table. Let's keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. You have this image in your head. So you're explaining to someone what you want that table to look like. It needs to have 4 legs. It needs to be a certain width, a height off the floor, and a certain finish. That's what you have in your head. And you imagine this thing in your head. Now, as you're explaining that, the other person is forming an image in their head too, based on what you're explaining. And this is why it's important to be clear and concise. When we give too much unnecessary information, you cloud the real reason and the real specification, essentially the scope of what it is you want. So when we're clear and concise and we just break down the simple things we need, right? So it's the four legs, and it needs to be certain height, certain width, and it's got to have a certain finish, and it's got to be brown. That's clear and concise. But if we gave it 6-7 paragraphs worth of information, we're going to lose the understanding. So your opinion and their opinion start here. And then what happens is, as you talk and you communicate, you start to go like this. You start to diverge from the same level of understanding. So that's what checking in allows you to do, is as this starts to happen, when people are working on the project, you check in and you can bring yourself back to the same goal, the same result. So you're aligned on what you want. And you can do this again and again. Remember, it's not micromanagement, it's checking in. So it's a, hey, seeing how you're getting on, any questions? They might just say, hey, I forgot, what finish did you want for the table again? And then you tell them, and then suddenly you're here, you're back, and you're aligned. Right? So that's the most important part. The key thing to take away, the key principle here, is to remember that communication is one of the most effective tools in your arsenal as a leader. And good, effective communication practiced at an early point in your leadership journey allows you to develop a stronger method of influencing people for positive impact. So good, effective communication, better influence, the correct result. That's what you're looking for as a leader, right? So guys, if you are liking this video, or you like any of the things I've spoken about, firstly, I urge you to stay and watch the rest of the video. Right, the next part I'm going to be talking about is about the older generation and trying to dispel a few myths here, right? Now, if you're liking this video, give me a like down below, click subscribe, but most importantly, share this video, because if you think this can help somebody else, I would love if you could share this video. For me, like I said, it's bringing leadership principles to your life so that I can make a positive impact on you. And if you can share this and make a positive impact on somebody else, that would be fantastic for me, because that would just allow me to start to fulfill my goal of having a positive impact by bringing leadership principles to your life, right? Okay, the next part of this is about the older generation. And I'm not talking about people 50, 60, retirement age. This could be anybody older than someone considered younger than yourself. So, for example, like me, I'm 28 and I have been managing larger teams now. As I've been I started the journey as an 18-year-old, and as I've been developing on my leadership journey, there was a point where I thought to myself, I'm still part of that younger generation, because the people I'm working with are a lot older. I'm managing large teams. I'm managing teams with 20 plus people, projects of 500-600 million pound projects, right? There's huge amount of work and scope here, yet I'm relatively young compared to the people in the industry. But there was a point when I looked at my team and I said, well, actually, most of the people here are younger than me, and they're of different ages, different backgrounds, different experiences. So I could, and they look up to me, so I'm technically considered as part of one of the older generation, because I'm managing a lot of younger people. Now, this is where I learned to myself, I said, okay, I need to look at this now and say, where am I in terms of my understanding, and am I getting the best out of these people? Am I coaching them in the right way? Am I motivating them in the right way? Do I have the right beliefs about working with these people? That's something I've come across quite a lot, is that, in particular, a lot of people in the industry that I work in, which is the construction industry, a lot of the time people look at the younger generation and say, actually, well, they're entitled, they're not as hardworking, and you know what, they just don't have it. Right? That is completely wrong. And I want to dispel that, because you've got to think, when you was that age, so if you're 30 or 40 or 35, 50 years, it doesn't matter what age you are. When you was 18 or 21 or 22, you wasn't as experienced, as knowledgeable, or as professional as you are today. Everybody starts at one point in their life where they're still learning. And that's why communication is so important. Something I read quite a lot, and some of the questions I get is, well, how do I motivate a younger person? How do I get them on board with the mission and the big picture? Essentially, it's what you're thinking. Because a lot of the time, the younger generation, they want to be part of the big picture. I know for a fact when I was younger, I wanted to be involved, part of the project. I didn't want to be kept on a need-to-know basis. But is kind of the same now. And a lot of the younger generation is like that. Why? Because they want to make an impact. The world is different. We've grown up in a society where knowledge is everywhere. So we're not fighting so much for the survival and the information. We want to be able to make an impact. We have a connection to the world, which is slightly different to what the older generation grew up with. The older generation grew up in let's call it a smaller, less connected world, whereas now the world is so connected. Sorry, I'm going to correct that. It's not a less connected, smaller world. It's a less connected, larger world, because you're less connected. But now the younger generation is growing up in a smaller, more connected world, if that makes sense. It's easier to understand what's happening on the other side of the globe just by searching online. So being part of that bigger global mission and understanding on how they can have an impact is what a lot of the younger generation feel. So as an older generation person, what can you do in this situation? The first step here is understanding where you are. So self-awareness. Where are you right now in terms of your understanding of the younger members in your team or your organization, your younger employees? Do you understand what it is they want? Do you understand what it is they're doing in your company? Why are they working for you? What can you learn about them so that you can motivate them? So a few examples here to really anchor this in. If you want to get a younger generation involved in the big picture thinking, tell them about it. Use the clear and concise communication to tell them about it. Don't just waffle on with all these words and fancy things about the big picture organization. No, get them together, right? Like I said, face to face. It's the same model I explained for the younger generation of learning this early. It's the same as an older generation leader. The principles don't change. Face to face communication, show them and really guide them to understanding what it is the bigger picture is. This will allow them to understand what their role is within the team and what their role is within the organization. It's the same, another example, if you want to implement a change and you want the younger person to understand what they need to do for that change, not just do, because how often, if you're an older generation leader, sometimes you've asked someone to do something to change and have an impact, yet they don't do it. They don't do it in the same fashion that you want it to. They don't have the same urgency, the same impact, the same passion about it. And that could be because you haven't communicated it properly. They don't understand the change. Maybe they don't agree with the change. And that's quite common. I've been in situations where I don't necessarily agree with the change of the organization of my seniors, but you're just told to do it. Whereas when I've been in another situation where I've been explained why we're doing it, that this is important as an older generation person, guiding younger generation is explain why you're doing something. And that's probably the most important part of the principle of communication here when guiding younger generations is explain why. Because when people, and I know for a fact, it's like me, if I understand why I'm doing something, I understand where I fit in the bigger picture. And with that, you can then put in more passion. You are slightly more motivated towards that because you feel part of the mission. And that's really what I want to share with you in this video. Just a quick recap, right? Part of the younger generation, if you're part of that and you're watching this video and you're part of the younger generation starting on your leadership journey, then the key principle to take away here is that communication is one of the most important things that you can start to practice early on to help you influence other people to generate positive results. Right? That is where you want to be. That is the stuff you need to start practice on early. And if you're part of the older generation and you're struggling to really communicate with the younger generation, the first step is self-awareness. Where are you? Do you understand what it is they want? And then the second step is, again, the same, clear and concise communication. Bring them in on the bigger picture. Share with them and explain why they are doing stuff. That is one of the most important principles to take away from communication as a younger and an older generation. So guys, thank you very much for watching the full video. If you've liked this, please hit the like button. If you've got any questions or anything that you've learned from this or you want to share with me, please leave a comment below because I will respond to you. I make it a permanent goal of mine to respond to every single reaction and comment that I get. And I do this because it's the same as me. Communication is part of the leadership principles that I want to share with you. So I want to demonstrate that I'm not just telling you this stuff, I do it too. So if you've got a question or anything, leave it in the comment below. If you liked the video, hit the like button and let me know that you liked it too. So some of these principles that I've spoken about are from my book, Managers Are Not Leaders. It's available on Amazon. It costs, if you're from the UK, it costs like £7. So if you wanna read this, there's a lot of valuable information in here. I talk about the ARE model of leadership and how key leadership behaviours can apply to your life and really transform your leadership journey. Now, again, if you've loved this video and you want anyone else that you feel can take an impact from it or have a positive impact on anybody else, I would love if you could share this video. And don't forget to subscribe because I've got more videos coming out. Thank you very much for listening. This is JT signing out.